At midnight on the 16th of October 2025, the sky over parts of Russia no longer felt like a safe rear. Long-range Ukrainian drones crept across thousands of square kilometers and struck oil refineries, storage depots, and pumping stations, targets that, until recently, Moscow treated as distant, protected infrastructure. The fires lit in the night were not isolated incidents. They were part of a deliberate campaign to choke the supplies that keep an army moving, an economy running, and civilians warm. Tonight on Tactical Signals, we walk through what happened, what we know with confidence, what remains uncertain, and why this phase of the war may be as decisive as any massed offensive on the front. Since August 2025, Ukraine has intensified a long-range drone campaign specifically aimed at Russia's energy network. Reuters tracked the pattern and concluded there have been at least 58 confirmed strikes on oil refineries, pumping stations, storage depots, and export terminals over recent months. Strikes that have sometimes reached as far as roughly 1,500 to 2,000 kilometers into Russian territory. Those repeated operations are no accident. They reflect new reach, better coordination, and a strategic choice to attack the logistical backbone, not just battlefield targets. The measurable effect of these strikes is already visible. Reuters calculations show the attacks removed roughly 17% of Russia's refining capacity, about 1.2 million barrels per day by mid-August, and that figure rose to around 21%, 1.4 million barrels per day, later in the period covered by their analysis. That scale matters. A sustained loss of this magnitude forces rerouting of fuel, creates domestic shortages, pressures internal distribution, and raises prices. It is not merely a handful of tanks burning, it is a supply chain shock. A concrete example of this campaign's intensity is the repeated strikes on Crimea's fuel nodes. In mid-October, the Feodosia oil depot, one of the largest terminals serving the occupied peninsula, was struck by Ukrainian drones, igniting large fires and forcing the evacuation of hundreds of people. Ukraine's SBU and the General Staff have publicly taken responsibility for some of the raids on energy infrastructure, while other strikes remain attributed by open sources and local officials. The human impact was immediate: evacuations, air quality hazards, and a temporary disruption to regional fuel logistics. At the same time that Ukraine has been striking Russian energy nodes, Russia has dramatically increased its own attacks on Ukrainian energy and gas facilities. On October 16, Russian forces launched a large barrage, reported by multiple outlets, involving hundreds of drones and dozens of missiles that struck gas plants, electric substations, and other critical energy installations inside Ukraine. Ukrainian authorities reported intercepting large numbers of incoming UAVs and missiles, but the attacks still caused widespread power outages across multiple regions, bonded with major air attacks against Ukrainian energy sites that caused blackouts across Potage regions. What remains uncertain in public sources: the exact models and number of drones used in each strike, the full inventory of damage in many remote facilities, and classified intelligence about precise vectors or Western telemetry support. Where I state a figure like 58 strikes or 17-21% capacity, I'm relying on Reuters' aggregation of open sources and satellite data. Those remain the best publicly available summaries. So how do long-range drone strikes achieve outsized effect? 3 technical patterns recur in credible reporting. First, range and endurance. Some Ukrainian drones and loitering munitions have been adapted or supported by relay networks and reconnaissance to fly unusually long distances. Second, target selection. Rather than trying to destroy whole plants with blunt force, attackers focus on critical nodes. Third, economics of defense. Downing a small UAV often requires expensive interceptors or the use of costly surface-to-air missiles and fighter sorties. When those high-value consumables are used repeatedly against low-cost drones. Reuters reporting and technical analyses by open-source investigators describe these patterns repeatedly across the recent campaign. The operational logic is clear: degrade the enemy's ability to keep tanks moving. Ukraine's campaign targets the supporting